I think 1 week we talked about Mitrovic twice. Well, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it does feel like that. It's been a bit Mitrovic and Haaland heavy overall.
Did you hear about Haaland's petition?
Oh
What?
yeah, is it to stop him going into games or something?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because he's a robot. Yeah.
Like, I think it's like got too many people signed up for it. I think to remove.
I think
from
you
the
need like
Premier League.
100,000 signatures for it to be
Oh,
discussed in Congress in Parliament.
There can't be 2 million, right?
Yeah, but
How are they? What do we even discuss there?
yeah, what is that? How does that discussion go? Oh, we can't really do anything. Oh, okay. Nice chat, guys.
I think you purposefully slot that conversation out for like an hour, and then it's over for like 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, and then you get 58 minutes break.
Yeah. In fairness, it's the kind of thing like for one season, like I can enjoy this. You know, see Haaland just tear it up. That's fine. From like next season, it will start to get boring.
I don't know. I just like watching Haaland play. It's so funny.
Yeah, he is a good character.
He's got character, and he's got that kind of the way he walks. He's got that hunchback as well.
He's got like that strut.
Yeah. On to the first match, shall we?
Yeah.
Arsenal Liverpool 3-2. Arsenal still top of the league. Arsenal still doing bits, and Liverpool going further and further down, which makes me incredibly happy. What do you guys think of the match?
Yeah, it's another one of those sort of things that you tick off, where you say, okay, this Arsenal team is a bit different to what we've seen previously, and another week where we do the opposite for Liverpool, right? Where it's like they've still not got going, and you know they twice they pegged back Arsenal in this game. To be fair, but they just it just doesn't look right. You know, defensively they just look a mess, and I know Trent's got a lot of the blame for that, but it's honestly the whole defense. Van Dijk doesn't look the same.
But yeah, it's like that kind of aura's gone from Van Dijk. Like,
yeah,
it's weird, isn't it?
I think it's the whole team. I just think Liverpool have lost a little bit of that aura that they had around them. They just feel like a team that you fancy at least scoring against and having a chance against.
I feel like Liverpool are going through what United had a couple of years after like Ferguson retired, and that kind of respect element has kind of gone away, and now teams are really going off and trying to attack Liverpool, and to some great effect as well. Like I mean for the longest time we've all said like Trent hasn't been the best defender in terms of like actual defending in the world, but now I feel like now teams are really targeting that right hand side, and I think if you put all that pressure on one side, eventually it all breaks, because now kind of Van Dijk has to cover like 3 defenders as opposed to like 1 or 2, and obviously Van Dijk's great, but he definitely can't do that. And I just feel like with teams attacking Trent and Robertson and Schmeichel not being as good as well, I just feel like that high pressure, high line that kind of that Liverpool have really is kind of showing its hold. And like you can see here, like we just did a quick comp on Arsenal versus Liverpool's back four, and firstly credit to Arsenal, like one, they played 4 centre backs in all 4 positions, which is new on me, but it wasn't so much as like Zinchenko or Tierney like bombing forward. Like they were very compact and tight, and obviously if you've got like Firmino, Diaz and Salah playing against them, you need to be quite tight to stop that great Liverpool attack. But as you can see here, you know, they're kind of even on pressures. They're kind of even on attacking third pressures. I think Arsenal have done a really good job at kind of pushing the defenders forward and pressuring the attacking third, which is something you normally see from Liverpool, right? Like that's something Liverpool have done to great effect the last couple of years. But for me, it's that like successful pressure rate, like 16% for Liverpool is quite frankly shocking given their talent they have at the back. And like conversely, like Arsenal having nearly 50%, like that's a great that's a great successful percentage pressure rate. So I just feel like, yeah, Arsenal are kind of giving Liverpool a bit of their own medicine, you know, like, and I feel like that's kind of where this game was turned around, because it was a great game, kind of attacking wise, but I think defensively, team kind of showed their hand a bit here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that stat kind of says all you need to say about these two teams right now. It's an Arsenal team that's just at it. Every game they just look hungry, they look lively in all phases of the game. Whereas Liverpool just feel a little bit lackluster so far this season. And you know what, I know Trent's going to get more criticism once again because Arsenal scored within a minute from his side, but I will say that after he left the game and Gomez came on, it got worse down that side.
Oh yeah,
Martinelli was, and that's part of it. It's not just Trent or Gomez here. It's Martinelli who's in incredible form so far this season. But it's the whole Arsenal team. There just feels something different about them. You know, this has been a fixture that Arsenal have struggled in over the past 5 years. And if you look at the record since Arteta's been at Arsenal, they had one win in 5 before Sunday's game, and that was a dead rubber game after Liverpool had already won the title. You know, 3 goals scored in those 5 games, 13 conceded.
Jesus.
And then you look at what Arsenal did on Sunday. They scored that same number of goals in one game, 6 shots on target, 41 touches in the opposition box.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, and I think in those 5 games combined, it almost matches that total from those 5 games combined.
Oh wow!
So, you know, I know there was some very interesting refereeing decisions in this game. There's just some bizarre reasonings as well. Apparently, they couldn't check the offside on the first one because they didn't have. It was a blind spot for the Hawkeye cameras.
Oh wow!
Which draw the VAR lines, so that's why there was no lines for that one.
Oh damn!
The Gabriel one, which I thought was a nailed-on penalty, apparently it because it hits his chest first, it's not a penalty. I've read.
They changed the rule. They changed the handball rule.
Yeah,
they change it quite often.
They mentioned proximity as well. I don't know. That looked nailed on. I was very surprised that wasn't a penalty.
Are we talking about the Liverpool appeal one?
The handball, because it's not a natural position.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I do agree with that. I did hear that as you said, like the proximity kind of played a part into it, but I don't know. To me, it feels like quite far off. Like
I think if your hands up like that, I don't think proximity should matter because you're denying a goal scoring opportunity by doing that. But apparently, because it does hit the chest before the arm. It's a different rule. I don't know.
They need to clarify the rule because I think we've had 2 other scenarios this week. I think Rashford with his one, and then Antonio and Scamacca kind of hit their hands as well.
I was just watching the first half of Copenhagen Man City, and there was a couple of handball decisions. One ruled out a goal, one for a penalty. It's just a mess, and you're right. They do seem to change every other week. We're just trying to keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
See, and, I don't know why they don't do it like rugby, where they have like the ref, like you can hear the referee speak and converse with their video assistants. Like, I think that would just help clear so much of it up, and I just don't know why they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, we need to hear the conversations, and I think there's an element of protecting referees with not doing that. Yeah. Because I get that they are scrutinised probably more than most officials. You know, rugby usually has that respect for officials anyway, even before they started, miking the conversations and whatnot. And cricket sort of has that respect as well. Football's lost that a long time ago, respect for referees. But
I think especially the Premier League, because I think Champions League has always been, and World Cups and Euros have always been, they've never been that controversial. I think like a slight decision here and there, but Premier League is every week there's something.
Yeah, it's they need to clear up that handball one. But even the Gabriel Jesus one that was given for Arsenal, that was soft. Probably the fact that there was the slightest bit of contact meant they weren't going to overturn it. But Arsenal deserve to win this game. There's no doubt about that. They were the better team on Sunday, and Liverpool can have few complaints about losing that. They really need to get things sorted out.
Yeah, I think man for man, you're looking at the Arsenal squad, kind of does remind me of when Liverpool were like changing into gears, where they were becoming contenders. You got that Saliba, who's now the new kind of Van Dijk for them. You got obviously Jesus, is kind of like almost like a Firmino role where he connects all the play. But I think for me, like whenever Arsenal lose this man, Partey, there is no Partey really, because he's always. Yeah, thanks.
Disgrace.
I know. I'll retire now. But yeah, he's just everywhere you want him to be. Like he's always intercepting. He plays that Fabinho role really well. And he's almost like, I remember when he played against Man United, it was almost like he was worth two midfielders. And that's just a scary like opponent, Midfield is like where the games are won. And I think what Liverpool is really lacking, because Thiago obviously great on the ball, but otherwise not that great in pressing or tackling. And then you got Henderson probably going over the hill a bit, and Fabinho hasn't really got into either, and they still rely on Milner as a backup, which is incredible. That guy should have ended his career a while.
But yeah, you're right about Partey. It's night and day when he's in the team versus when he's not in the team in terms of Arsenal's performance. It certainly was last season, and his absence at the end of the season was a big part of the reason why Arsenal did miss out in the end on top four. And if you're going to play this style where you have two central midfielders in Odegaard and Xhaka, who are going to push really high and operate as essentially dual tens,
or Xhaka as a striker.
Yeah, or Xhaka as a number 10, getting in behind. This guy does need to operate as kind of two midfielders, like you're saying. I think most teams would love to be able to play that with just the one holding midfielder. The reality is there's not many players in world football that can do it. Fabinho has done it for a while for Liverpool, but he's not been at his best so far this season, and that's been part of their problem, because without that anchor in the centre and the midfield, you can't be brave. You can't push those players up the pitch. And you talked about the four centre backs for Arsenal at the back, but Ben White was getting forward at every opportunity. He's adapted to that role so well. He's been amazing.
He's good at every position he plays. Yep,
he's just a proper player.
I think if you're looking at this party kind of graph you've got here, like if I'm reading this, what kind of stands out to you, Sharon, in terms of like something you would like, something that really stands out in terms of a DM that you really need to operate at that high level? Because I'm seeing this progressive passes, and that's quite a lot.
Yeah. He's in the 90th percentile there. He's got live touches, balls. Like he's pretty much high in all ranks. Even pretty good for non-penalty goals against midfielders too. That's the 90th percentile, I think, or the 80th. That's really good. Passes under pressure. Passes into final third. That's what you want from your centre mid. Obviously, Arsenal have a lot of the ball, so that's why his tackles and ball recoveries aren't as high. Because if you're like a defending team, you'd be tackling and ball recovering the whole time. But yeah, he's got the full package. Apart from, I can't really say. Apart from maybe carrying the ball, he doesn't really carry as much as probably like elite, but he does enough.
I think he definitely can.
Yeah,
he definitely did. Back when Arsenal played a double pivot with him and Xhaka both playing deep, he often did carry the ball. I think he can pretty much do anything you want. But it's that ball winning ability in the middle of the park that is key for Arsenal.
Let's go on to Chelsea versus Wolves. Wolves again, no goals for them. I think that's like a banker you could have, especially for FPL. Like I always look at Wolves and I'm like, they're not going to score. Let me put that defender in.
Yeah. What is it? Like 3 goals this season for Wolves.
Yeah.
That's
3.
shocking.
Yeah, 3, yeah.
3, yeah. 3 entire goals. Yeah, I mean, the less said about that, the better, to be honest. But Chelsea quietly getting going under Graham Potter, who's tried a few different shapes already. He's already flexing. He's already flexing his tactical muscles at Stamford Bridge. It hasn't taken him long, but I think Mason Mount is just going to be a key player. Whatever shape he's switching to, Mason Mount's in, and it's something we've seen for England as well, where Gareth Southgate's always finding a place for Mount in the side. Tuchel did it as well. Everywhere he goes, managers value him. And in this game, 2 assists, 8 shot creating actions, 5 key passes. I mean, that's
crazy.
That's a hell of a performance. And we were kind of talking about how he's kind of had a quiet start to the season so far this year, Mount. So it's good to see him get going, because he's just one of those players that can kind of do what you need him to do in that midfield. If you need him to be the creator, he can do that. If you need him to sit deeper and be more of like a box to box, he can also do that for you.
He seems like the perfect Potter player, right? In terms of playing so many different positions: left wing, right wing, centre mid, centre attacking mid. Bit like how Gross used to play for Potter, right? In terms of that kind of 8-10 role, but sort of going forward really high as well.
Yeah, I think they've got a bunch of those attacking players. You can imagine seeing a lineup with like Sterling, Havertz, Mount, like Loftus-Cheek, who's played a few different positions, Reece James. You're like, how the hell are these guys lining up? Like, you can probably come up with 3 or 4 different formations just based off the team sheet alone. So,
and then you have like Cucurella, who obviously was with Potter at Brighton. Like, he can play left centre back or left wing back. He had James and Chilwell didn't start, so Pulisic was on the right, and I can't remember who was on the left wing back. But basically, I think it was Cucurella. Sorry, Cucurella left wing back and Pulisic right wing back to start the game off with. And it's just like that. I think that variety of positions is going to really help Chelsea when they go into like the thick of it before the World Cup. And obviously, like Mount being a great player, he'll just kind of step into any role he has. And to your point on like Mount having like a quiet season, he kind of just does this. I think he just kind of just like ticks along in games. He does this business. He probably runs his ass off every week. But then he has games where he just absolutely pops off. Like, I'm thinking about like Norwich last season where he got a hat trick. I think this is another one of those games where like he really shows his quality, and I just wish that sometimes with Mount he has the ability to do that more, because sometimes I don't think the system really facilitates him. It's more about the other players and specifically the wing backs. But I feel like he's a player that you could definitely build a team around for sure.
Yeah, I think he's not flashy, and I think that's one of his best attributes, to be honest. He just fits into the team however you need him to fit in, and this flexibility that Mason Mount gives them, but also a bunch of those attacking and defensive players that they've got, it gives opposition managers, they have to think twice, starting a game, because you're not quite sure how Chelsea are going to shape up. And then it also gives them that flexibility within the game that, if a 10-15 minute spell starts to go against them, they can switch up and all of a sudden they're a completely different beast, and suddenly you're on the back foot again. So I think that's something that Chelsea have got to use, because I think man for man against some of these other teams in the division, the Arsenals and the Spurs, is that we think they'll be competing around. I think man for man, they probably don't stack up to those sides right now.
It's sort of like not transition, but like sort of like a mini transition, right? They got some pieces, but they just need a bit. Potter needs a few windows. I'm gonna be interested to see who Potter will want to sign, because he's always been used to kind of getting these gems out of like hidden leagues and stuff. Can you do the same thing with like, because you got, I think they signed Nkunku from Leipzig. They already signed him for next season.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quite interesting how he can deal with those kind of characters. Big money signings. It's a lot more pressure, right?
Yeah, I think that's the big question mark. Is okay. He's shown he can coach up guys and sort of play that money ball approach that Brentford used to do in the Championship, where you buy these kind of unknown quantities, you coach them up, you get them to this level, and then you sell them on. They did that terrifically, Brighton. Obviously, that's not the policy at Chelsea. Chelsea, it's going to be a lot more stars coming into the side. But when you think of the youth academy and the fact that more often than not, these stars come out of Chelsea's academy and yet don't ever get a chance at Chelsea, maybe that's where he will shine, where these young players can come through and he can help develop them into the Chelsea side, rather than them relying on spending 150 million on 3 or 4 new signings each year.
Yeah, I don't really trust that Ted Boehly guy. Did you hear what he used to say to Tuchel about Ronaldo? Like, can we sign Ronaldo? And Tuchel's like, no. And then Boehly's like, come on.
Yeah, there's been some interesting conversations leaked, and there's a lot of leaks that have come out of Chelsea.
Yeah.
So, it will be an interesting, because Potter had interesting relationships at Brighton at first. He came in and
criticized the fans, didn't he?
Yeah, made some weird comments about the fans, which I found very strange at the time. But he won them over, to be fair, in the end.
Yeah.
I
think on your point on like players and who Chelsea could bring in, I think like when I look at their squad, I think they really need kind of that replacement. Well, I think they need a couple of things. I think that replacement for Kante, because he seems to be injured every other week, and it's kind of a Nicholas effect where he became so important to Chelsea and how they play for a time, that when he was injured and gone, like they just couldn't handle a game without him. Kind of games at the beginning of the season where they were leaking a lot of goals. So having that box to box central midfielder, like that's like a genuine like centre midfield, like a pair up with Jorginho. I think that would be one spot, and then obviously like kind of getting a younger centre back in. Like I don't know if they want to bring back Tomori back, but I feel like kind of they just need to get more youth in that centre back position.
Yeah, I think like Potter always likes like the midfielders like Kante. Like if you look at his Brighton side there, Casido and then Mbrepo, they're kind of similar, like box to box, high energy, Kante like kind of players.
Yeah,
so
but I think I heard that Kante's stalling over a new contract. I think he wants multi-year, and I think Chelsea aren't willing to offer that.
Yeah,
injuries have played a big part in I think that decision, and it looks like he's going to be gone this summer. So that is something that they pretty immediately need to look at.
Poor AJ.
Bellingham.
Let's go into Wolves. We've gone from Potter, excellent coach, to Wolves with no coach, and even with a coach who, when they had large, this is them from last year to this year. Look at how many goals they scored. I think it's 35, and you can see there 3 on goals. And that's just because Podence just got 2 goals this season. They are dire in front of goal.
Yeah, these are shocking numbers.
And Jimenez was injured for half of it as well.
I remember when I first saw this graph going over this before we did the call, and seeing own goal halfway up this list. It's shocking, and I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, we'll have to see which manager it is that comes in at Wolves. Obviously, there's still a big question mark in that regard, but it's got to be. I mean, they've got the players, right? I mean, guys like Podence, Hwang, Jimenez is still quality. Neto, yeah, if he can stay fit. They've still got Adama Traore, who quite famously doesn't get goals or assists, but there's talent there at the very least. And guys like Neves and Moutinho, they can keep the ball in the midfield. Defensively, they've always been strong and kind of played above their kind of the talent level. But So the ingredients are there for a very good team, and
They look like they should be a much better team. A bit like Aston Villa. They got these kind of players who can look threatening.
I can kind of understand Aston Villa because I think Gerrard this year has been like, look, we want to like shore up that defense, and be solid. Like I can understand that. And last year, like I think Villa did quite well in the attacking terms. Certainly not the numbers Wolves have done, but one, I think you've done Neto a bit bad. My boy Neto there a bit bad because he was injured for like
all of last season, basically, yeah.
And he got his picture there, and it kind of implies that he didn't.
I did that on purpose, JC.
Yeah,
he's reeled him in.
He's the biggest image.
He got me. He hooked.
He's reeled him in.
But like when you think of Wolves, I've for some reason I just watched lots of Wolves games, mostly because of Neto.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to comp him to a team like.
Surely there's some paint you can watch dry in somewhere.
Like the thing is, they play decent football. Like they've got some really good players, but I think it's that mentality thing where you get to that final third, and because Jimenez was always that, and we've spoken about this before. Like if you're going to be like a high defensive team, you're going to be counter-attacking. You really need that focal point up front in strike, right? And Jimenez, obviously, I think he broke his skull or something. Like, obviously, that happened. That horrible injury happened, and he's not been quite the same player. And without that, you don't have that kind of experience up top or that calmness where you could just take the final shot. And I think
it's just a focal point that they had, and now they've lost, and kind of trying to find that again. Because I think of someone like Podence, and I thought of him and Trossard last season as like kind of the same player essentially for two different teams.
Yeah,
like quality players that could be a bit streaky, but absolutely you can see the like potential.
Yeah,
and then like from last season to this, I mean, Trossard's just gone up levels, right? Has got consistency. Is almost like the focal point of that Brighton team now. And Podence is still a guy that isn't necessarily guaranteed a start at Wolves. He hasn't really been able to kick on.
I think the weird bit for me is, they had him and his injury, then they had the transfer windows, but they keep signing the same players. They signed that, I'm trying to think that striker, what's the striker? Fabio Silva. There's another one they signed recently. Pretty much
Guedes.
Guedes, yeah. He's a player who's exactly like Podence, Neto, Traore.
Great dribblers. Trincao on loan.
Yeah, they're Trincao, who scored 2 goals. So they had all these kind of similar players. They don't really sign players who run in behind, players who hold up the ball. Seems a bit of a weird transfer strategy for me.
Yeah, and obviously they've let one of their big goal scorers in Connor Cody go out on loan. So
I was debating whether to put him in and have own goals higher.
Oh Lord, poor Wolves.
Well, let's talk about a team that's kind of gone back into form now, right? We talked at the beginning of the season, we were a bit worried. We had that Man City loss. We were like, fine, there's Man City. And they just kind of didn't go over the hump. They had some good performances, but now they seem to be like, Bowen seems to be scoring, Scamacca seems to be scoring.
Yeah, another great goal, I think, from Scamacca in this one.
Yeah.
He's starting to find his feet now, and fair play to David Moyes. I think he's actually been fairly smart, and he's kind of managed him well, because you sign a striker for 40 million, there's an expectation that he comes straight into the team and leads the line.
Yeah.
But maybe he wasn't immediately ready, and he's still stuck with Antonio, who was out of form. Just give Scamacca that little bit of time to adapt. And I think it's his Europa League performances have given him this opportunity now in the Prem.
Yeah, it's given him confidence. You can see, like, I think last match he was averaging 1 shot a game. This match he's had 5 shots already. Fair enough, it was against Fulham, so they're quite leaky. But 3 shot connections, and what I took from it is just 70 presses. So you think of a target man kind of just sitting there waiting for the ball, but he does chase. He does work hard for the team, which is always good to see.
Yeah, that is good. And if he can show this consistently for West Ham, and sometimes it's not all about the goals as well. Sometimes we can be too quick to write off strikers who don't start scoring goals initially. I think that Preston statistic is quite telling, and it talks of a guy that is lively, and I think that can be enough for some strikers sometimes. Where I mean, that's basically what Antonio lived on for
True.
2 or 3 years at West Ham, just being lively, just being a nuisance for defenses, and a guy that can put the ball in the back of the net like he can. I mean, he's scored some outrageous goals already for West Ham. You know,
Is he going to fall into that Mope kind of silhouette? Great.
I think he's better than that. I think he's better than that. I think he's got more to his game than a Mope. I think we're going to start to see a proper striker actually now.
Going back on your word there, Matt.
Yeah, well, I always worry when a team outside the top six spends so much on a striker, because there's usually a reason why the top teams don't want to take that risk. So I do see it as a risk, but I think West Ham have enough of those very exciting attacking players that that they can get the best out of a player like Scamacca, and another one of those is Lucas Paqueta. I don't know how West Ham got him, because there was talk of lots of big teams being in for him over the summer, but he's gone to West Ham, and another one of these brilliant attacking players that they have, right? The Fornals, the Lanzinis,
the
Bowens, Benrahma. Yeah, they've just got so many great, and I really like that. I really like watching West Ham, because week to week that they could start any combination, any three combination behind Scamacca or Antonio, and you feel like they're going to be a danger, and then you've also got a couple of them potentially coming off the bench as well to worry about.
Benrahma and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Paqueta, he got assist in this game, 5 shot creating actions, 6 progressive passes, 2 key passes. He's just a creator. I think he might be the best of the bunch. I think of Bowen, Benrahma. They're quite energetic guys that can take on defenders, but I think Paqueta is almost like the conductor who will just almost play a quarterback role and just feed all this talent around him. I think he's going to be a brilliant player for West Ham.
He seems to be this kind of new age midfielder coming. He reminds me of Bruno Guimaraes in a sense where he can play 6, 8 on 10. I think Sky Sports did something, or Carragher said something about Bruno Guimaraes was highest in tackles, highest in progressive passes, high in key passes. It's just that kind of new midfield. It's going back in time. It's like going back to players like Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira, who kind of did it all.
It's like you can see this sort of transformation over the years. I think back in the day, you used to have central midfielders could kind of do everything, kind of well. I don't think they might be extraordinary on 1 or 2 things, but they were just good all round. Then you had the age of kind of specialists, and you'd almost have these 3-man midfields comprised of 3 very different players who together provided this nice balance. You think of the Barcelona midfield, Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, quite different qualities, but together made this formidable trio. And now we're getting to a point where it's not enough to just kind of specialize in one of these things. You're seeing more of these players that can actually play each of the roles. And we spoke about Partey earlier. He could play more of an 8 role, I think, in a midfield if you wanted him to. Maybe not more of a 10.
He loves
as a creator. Yeah, not always for the best, but yeah, you're right. I think just the further we go along, it's like attacking players now. We say it as well. Strikers used to be split off into different categories, and now you have a Haaland that's just absolutely everything. It's putting players that can only do one or two things quite well, they're becoming less valuable now.
Yeah, it's true. You don't really see number 10s, like pure number 10s, like the Matters,
No, I mean
David Silvers.
Mata and Ozil just like fell off
Yeah.
a cliff, didn't they? Like they were like so important, and then all of a sudden, like they were just on the bench, and
Or push to the wings.
yeah, it's crazy how quick that changed, how quickly that went out of vogue.
Talking about these midfielders like Bruno G, Newcastle, 5-1. Another, last game they won 4-1? They seem to be scoring for fun now.
They needed to. I think something that was undermining their start to the season was all these draws, because they've actually been superb, really. On the face of it, they've only lost the one game so far this season, and that was Liverpool getting a very fortunate last-minute winner against them at Anfield. So this is a team that is going places.
It's kind of like watching that kind of, remember Man City when they were, it's apart from the phase when the Man City were buying Robinho and them lot, this kind of the phase where they start buying the De Bruynes, the Silvers, Agueros.
We've said it about Newcastle basically since the summer, that they seem to have seen what Chelsea and Man City did over those years, those early years where they did get it wrong, where they just squandered a bunch of money very quickly on talent that just wasn't up to it in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Newcastle seem to be doing it properly. They're taking their time with it, and I think they're going to invest throughout the club, not just here's 200 million this summer.
Yeah.
Go and buy me, the exciting talent on the back pages.
I think it's been a year since the takeover of when the game happened over the weekend against Brentford, and obviously they brought in a couple of good players like Trippier and Ishq. Someone who I kind of saw in the game was Almiron, who last year was kind of a frustrating player because you clearly saw a lot of talent. He was kind of just like an ant just flying across the field with no real purpose for target. He was just absolutely flying. And I think this year he kind of really, well, I mean, this game in particular, he really kind of just popped off for me. Like, as you can see here, he got a goal. He got 0.9 XG, 4 shot creating actions, 3 goal creating actions. And I've kind of realized him, and with kind of having just watched the Arsenal Liverpool game, he in an odd way kind of just reminded me of Salah. He kind of just bombs up that right wing, but obviously he's mostly left-footed, so he always cuts in and goes in for
very left-footed.
And he just kind of, I think he just really stood out as a player that kind of didn't quite live up to a lot of his potential last season, and I think he's really trying to step up. He's got a good couple of goals in the last. I think he got a goal last game as well.
Yeah, disgusting strike.
Yeah, he's got a wicked shot if you ever watch him. And we always talk about Saint-Maximin and Trippier, these players going forward, but Almiron is a really good player that kind of came in the last couple of seasons, and I just think he's just, as Matt said, he's kind of not the superstar signing you would expect from a team that just got bought out by probably a consortium of billionaires, but he really fits that style that Newcastle want to play. And obviously, kind of the draws aside, I think Newcastle have played really well this season. We probably don't talk to them enough purely because of the draws, but maybe by the end of the season they might be able to crack top 6, and then who knows from there. Obviously, City's rise came pretty fast. Who knows where this Newcastle team will go, but I think they've had a very good season, and also a team that's just fun to watch, and that's always a great thing.
You know who Miggy reminds me of? If you ever play goals, he seems to remind me of those players that kind of come into your pitch and they kind of just run down that wing.
Yeah,
I don't know. He just reminds me. He even looks like the kind of guy.
Yeah, he does.
Can't keep the ball off them.
Yeah,
get the ball off them. But Yeah, no, he's been really important for them in this little run where they've been missing Saint-Maximin and they sign Isaac and he gets injured as well. Almiron's put in some really top performances and kind of emphasizes this buy-in that there seems to be across the whole squad of Eddie Howe. You know, we could talk about Trippier and Guimaraes, and we have spent a lot of time talking about those guys and the impact they've had since they've come in. But the thing that's really undermined Newcastle's transformation over the past year, because it's almost a year since Eddie Howe got that job now, it's been guys like Almiron, and we've spoken about Joe Linton a lot as well, how different he is, but they just seem to be playing with a lot more confidence than they did 12 months ago. He looked a shadow of what he is at the moment. And these numbers for Newcastle so far this season: 17.4 xG and just 9.7 xG against.
Mm-hmm.
That's 7.7 difference. That's third best in the Premier League, behind, you know, the Arsenal, Manchester City that everyone's talking about as being the title contenders this year. Newcastle are the only team, or the best team of the rest. And
I would say they're third best team. I think so. Them and Brighton probably in the same.
Yeah, I think there's a whole bracket of teams in that middle section. They might be contending for top four, which it probably feels a little bit early for Newcastle to be in that sort of bracket. But you know, if they just need to convert a few more of those draws into wins, because this XG is kind of propped up by the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
the 4-1 and the 5-1, but they've largely won a lot of their XGs kind of battles in so far this season. It's probably only City game, and I think they played poorly against Brighton, but other than that, they've been the better team in most of their games this season.
I think when I think of like the top four teams to get into the Champions League, I think one of their qualities is like you can almost score on demand. Like you can just like click your fingers and you can score a goal whenever it's needed. Like Arsenal seem to only score goals as soon as they concede, or City just do 3 passes and then they score. I don't think Newcastle's quite there yet. I mean, they've had 5 draws, so they're not there yet. But I know what you mean, though. Like they're really knocking on the door, and especially with teams like United and Chelsea and Spurs dropping points, you know, there's a real opportunity for them to maybe get that last spot. I just feel like something they probably need to work on is like that team cohesion. Like, you know, when Arsenal score, like they're all together, they huddle, they make their real cohesive unit, it seems. I think Newcastle are just a tad behind them so far. But I would love to imagine Newcastle getting into the Champions League. That'd be great.
To be fair, that team cohesion, and I think they've got a nice balance to their team as well. They don't seem to have too many glaring weaknesses. And when I think of teams like United and Chelsea, who do seem to have kind of weaknesses in their lineups, they don't seem to quite have that balance. They kind of have the edge on them, I feel, there, but it is a much smaller squad. Like 1 or 2 injuries could kind of derail Newcastle. They feel a bit more susceptible to that. But
it's good they don't have double game weeks like Champions League or European football too.
That should help them as well. Definitely.
So I was trying to think, you know, what's gone wrong with Brentford, because they seem to be, you know, last season you think of Thomas Frank's team as something like a solid team. You know, it's going to be hard to break them down. They kept some clean sheets with Raya and goal. But this season, they seem to be just conceding all their matches. I think they've only had 1 clean sheet. I was trying to drill into the numbers to see where it went wrong. And from what I can see here, you can see the goals against, they've dropped down a little bit. But tackles versus dribblers, they've won the first in the Premier League last season to 20th. The personnel's the same, but they don't seem to be stopping these wide players as they used to, because they normally pack the midfield central zones, and sort of defend really well on the wide. I don't know if Aaron Hickey's got anything to do with that, but we'll see. And they also...
I have noticed that about Hickey. He can be dribbled past. I think they played AJ at right back quite often last season. He's more of a centre back, so he's probably stronger tackle wise, but yeah, they do feel more susceptible.
Yeah,
dropping from 1st to 20th, like that's not like
crazy.
that's something's wrong there, because that can't, like, you don't just go from best to worst like all like in the space of like 6 months. Like, it just doesn't happen. And you're right. I don't know what's wrong with them, and to be honest, you can't really tell in matches. They seem to be playing exactly the way they played last season. But you are right. Like it's a real issue, because I think one of the best points of Brentford has been their defense and how many clean sheets they kept.
I don't know. They are a weird team. They don't seem attached to any core sort of like identity within that, because they had games last season where they'd concede a lot of goals as well. They've had that this season where they've kept a clean sheet or two. They have, and then they've had other games where they sort of concede quite heavily. They put 5 past Leeds, and now they've had 5 put past them. So they just feel like a bit of a up and down team. There's some weeks that are gonna set up quite nicely for them, and then other weeks where they're kind of going to struggle.
But they've conceded a lot from dead balls. Like, they only conceded 5 last season. They've already conceded 4. And they got a big team, so I don't know if there's something wrong with set piece coach. Maybe he left or something, but they don't seem as organized. And even when I'm looking at the goals they concede, it's not clear cut. It's not like one area like you see with Liverpool, a lot of goals coming down from the right. Very strange.
It might honestly just be that, like, it's the second season. People know what they're kind of facing with the team. Like, it happened with Leeds their second year. You know, sometimes
there's so many teams.
These teams just know how to defend against other teams, and it's so quick. And I mean, we literally just said, like, they're playing exactly the same way they did last season. It might just be that they've just been found out a bit and they're struggling to come up with something new, because you can only score so many goals via throw-in, aka Arsenal Brentford first game of the season.
Yeah, it's true. Defensively, I think they have tailed off slightly, but I think what was more important, because it was sort of a problem at times last season, was going the other way going forward.
Mm-hmm.
If they can consistently score goals, they'll be okay. They probably do need to tighten up slightly defensively, but this is a team that a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago now, I guess, did beat Man United 4-0. They had a nice win against Leeds, that 5-2.
Yeah, no need. Mute him before he said more.
I'm just saying, this is Brentford. I think they're gonna be okay. They've had a tough few fixtures. They had Arsenal a few weeks ago. Newcastle away is a tough game for a lot of teams now. So I'm a bit patient with Brentford.
Oh yeah, I definitely don't think they're gonna go down, but
no,
they need to shore up. Maybe even get rid of Hickey. So
no.
So let's look at the rest of the week's matches. So Bournemouth beating Leicester. Leicester, we thought they turned the corner.
No surprises there.
I don't know. Bournemouth, I don't know how they keep getting away with it. I still don't know what they are. They've still got Gary O'Neill in charge of that team. He might just get the job full time, because he's done a hell of a job.
Yeah, might as well.
Stabilizing this side, and I don't know. I keep waiting for the week where everyone kind of figures out what Bournemouth are, and they just kind of go down quietly. But I don't know. It's still not happened. I think they're on the same. They're above Liverpool. It's the team that beat them 9-0. They are above them in the table now. So fair play to them. They're doing something right. As for Leicester, I mean, this is just, you know, we thought they had that revival against Forest, but Brendan Rodgers is in big trouble now. You can't. You just can't lose to Bournemouth.
I feel like he wants to get sacked because he keep playing Ward, and Ward's terrible.
Well, what's their other option? I mean,
I think Iverson. Yeah, might as well give him a shot.
Yeah, I think they've signed another keeper now that will come in January. So,
okay.
You know that, but they've still got to get to January. I mean, they could be in big trouble by the time that comes.
City, Southampton, another drubbing for Southampton, but I guess no one was surprised for this result, right?
No. City at home are just animals. They're just complete animals, and Southampton, they can be quite, you know, feisty at times against some of these big teams, but at the moment they just don't look at it.
0.1 XG.
Yeah, that's never good. I mean,
wait, I like that. Are we still talking about Southampton?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm going to interrupt you, Max. I don't know what you're saying, but like, Southampton are in real trouble. Like, they've not won in 4 matches. Their last win was 5 games ago. They're currently sitting on 7 points, 1 above Wolves, Nottingham, and Leicester. I'm pretty sure, like, kind of Leicester and Wolves have the quality to kind of go forward in the table. So this might be it for Southampton for the season, because I'm not sure if they've got the players to carry on, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Hasenhüttl now feels like a dead man walking. He's felt like a dead man walking before and somehow cut on, but you're right. They don't seem to. But I go back and forward on Southampton all the time. At the start of the season, I was really low on them. I thought, nah, they ain't got the quality. Then they put a few results together. They beat Chelsea, and it was like, oh, okay, I quite like this Southampton team. They got some nice young players, and then they just, like you say, they go and like not winning 5 again, and play pretty poorly in that time as well. It's not even just the results. There's way too many of these weeks with Southampton where they just do not turn up at all. It's just not a contest, and you're just like.
What's good about Southampton is like whenever they lose, and they, you know, some teams they lose and then you can see the confidence drop the next week. They lose and they can keep losing for many weeks, but they play exactly the same way. They're still as confident, seem as happy as ever. It seems like they forgot.
Well, I was going to say I've never seen a team recover from a 9-0 quite so spectacularly like Southampton do. But to be fair, Bournemouth have done that this season as well. So I don't know. Maybe that's the key to some of these teams. Just lose 9-0, get out of your system, go again.
Yeah, it's like chicken pox, right? Let's go to Brighton Tottenham. I was quite looking forward to this match, but it was a little bit boring, which most Spurs games are, to be fair. For me, anyway.
Yeah, they're not.
For the side they have, they should be creating a lot more chances.
Yeah, they're an odd team, Tottenham, because they can be explosive on the attack. I think teams have got a bit wise to it. Maybe they're just making it hard because when you play that kind of extra man defensively, which Spurs often do, right, with the 3 centre backs, you don't really have much of a midfield. It's sort of quite one-dimensional. It's get the wing backs high, and that's how you create your overloads. And yeah, I think it's just a case of teams are just not letting them do that. And then outside of that, they're quite limited. They've scored a few of their goals from kind of set pieces this season.
Even Kane's goal this week was a bit of a kind of like, I think, was it Son who kind of like, was it a cross shot and he kind of just scooped his head?
Crossed it in and Kane nearly got his head ripped off, but somehow managed to just like flick it across his head.
Haaland, take notes.
No notes. Haaland doesn't need to do anything. But yeah, like on Matt's point, like I think it's good. You know, it's hard playing with like 3 centre backs, but when you've got like a midfield of like, you know, Bentancur and Højbjerg, like that's two solidly good players that can run any kind of midfield. I think
I will say that they must have been listening to our show last week, because they put the extra man in midfield for this game. They did a three of Basuma, Højbjerg, and Bentancur, and played just Kane and Son up front. And they didn't look to be as troubled as they have in previous games. But Basuma didn't really do too much of anything in this game. But I guess at least good to see that Conte's got different plans. I think they had to find a way of just getting a bit more control in that midfield at times. That's not going to be necessary every game.
Yeah.
But
I think
it's certainly against a Brighton team that does like to overload that midfield. I mean, under Potter, they used to sometimes have like 5 players in the centre of midfield. It was serious overload. So, yeah, I think that was a good decision in this game, and they got 3 points. I don't think Tottenham are too concerned about performances if they keep getting 3 points.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They're really over XG their performance. Let's go to the next game: Crystal Palace and Leeds. Don't know if you saw the second goal for Crystal Palace, but that was nice.
I love Eze. He looks so composed in everything he does.
It looks easy for him.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, mate. But he doesn't. He never looks rattled. And I didn't really ever see him as like an out and out central midfielder. He always felt more of like an attacking player. You'd play him out wide before you'd play him as a centre midfielder in a 3-man midfield. But he excels in that role. He's brilliant there, and I love these two teams, Palace and Leeds. This was a great game to watch. For the first 20 minutes, Leeds were all over Palace. It was like all out onslaught. Palace could not string 2 passes together, and then after that, Leeds didn't really do much of anything. I don't know. I think Palace just came in. They knew that Leeds were going to come out the blocks quite hard. 1-0 down for their troubles, but they backed themselves to get back into this game, and they did that and deserved the win in the end, I think.
Yeah, I feel if you can like hold the siege from Leeds, obviously they're gonna have to quiet down for a little bit, and the defense isn't like rock solid. If they're not pressuring high or doing these duels, their defense, as a rest defense, it's not that great. I think, especially the talent that Crystal Palace have.
Their better defending comes up the pitch, right? Yeah. And they're extremely aggressive, high press. And once you beat that press, you can get at that Leeds team. And they do kind of feel like Arsenal as well, where I think for like the first 15 minutes of games, you've got to sit in and just hope that the game doesn't get away with you, because they come out the blocks flying. And if you're still in the game after 15-20, then you can start to play your way into it, and you can look to cause them problems.
What do you guys think of Bamford since his injury? Do you think they should be replacing him, or do you think that he just still needs a run of games?
I've always felt that Rodrigo's a striker. I've always thought he's more of a striker than a number 10. And when you think this season Bamford hasn't scored this season, has he?
I think so.
And Rodrigo, as soon as he went through the middle earlier in the season, he was banging in goals. It's a no-brainer, and they've got enough of these attacking midfielders. If you're playing Bamford, you're essentially just choosing one of like Aronson, Harrison. Sinistero was suspended for this one, but Somerville looks an exciting talent as well. You're essentially consigning one of these players to the bench, and I think they've got a lot more to offer right now than a slightly out of form Patrick Bamford. Yeah,
I think with Bamford, he always seems to have high XGs over the seasons, but low output, and he'll always have one shot in like 4 or 5 matches where it's an absolute sitter. Like I think it's either last week or the week after that where he literally missed an open goal.
Yeah,
with a goal that you would expect any good kind of last touch striker to score. I feel like if you don't have him, that means you have to play Rodrigo up front, and I still think that's a better combination with Bamford and Rodrigo as opposed to like Rodrigo and another centre, another number 10. Like personally, that's what I've always felt about Leeds.
Yeah.
It's that trade-off, but I do know I do think Rodrigo's a better striker, but I just think that it's just too much of a loss to because you're not playing Bamford at 10 for sure. Like
No.
you can't do that.
Bamford's only a striker, and you're right, he can be quite wasteful at times. He's like a 10 to 15 goal a season striker. I don't think he'll ever exceed those sort of numbers, but he's got to get going now.
To be fair, like I think before Leeds came in the Premier League, he wasn't that prolific. I think.
Nah, he's never been that guy. He's always been a guy that's been talked about and has you kind of felt had the potential, but it sounds weird because when he first came into the Premier League, he seemed to overachieve.
Yeah, and now he's kind of gone back.
I think. So it's kind of hard to know where his level is. Yeah. He's gone to extreme highs and extreme lows.
But I mean, like you can any striker in any given season can pop off. I think it's just like he's just regressed back, isn't it? Like he's just regressed back to what he is, and that's fine. Like he's a perfectly capable striker. As we said, like I don't think he's 25 goals a season, is he? He'll just go about, he'll do his job if he can stay fit, but he's had a string of couple of injuries now.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing is if he can stay fit, then the goals will start to come.
He reminds me of that's true. He reminds me of like Michu, Papa Cisse. Yeah. You see those players that come in, score these great goals, and you're like, "Oh my god, where's he been all my life?"
The streets will never forget him. That's for sure.
I still remember. Was it Cisse's goal against? I think it was Chelsea, where he just like he whipped it, and then it actually went like an X. It went like a sine curve into the net. Like he's doing like Pythagoras or some shit. And he just scores from there. Like that's still like one of my favorite goals I've ever seen.
Yeah, whenever I think about like my favorite goals, I think that's like top 3 at least for sure.
Yeah,
because I was like, that's audacious. Like, well, who would even think to shoot from that angle, facing the other directions, outside the boot?
And it wasn't even like a cross that turned into a goal. It was like a genuine shot. Yeah, so that's what was good about it. Like it was definitely meant it. It's just like who does that in front of like 60,000 people? Like,
and then where did he go? What happened to him after?
I know. Should we just look?
After that, he was never the same again.
Wait, hold on.
He had like an unbelievable streak, right? He scored like I think 7 and 7 or something like that. Since his debut, right? And then
because I think he signed in January that year.
Yeah,
and just completely blew up until May.
So he went to China for a couple of years, and then he went to Turkey. And now he's at Amman, which I think is a French club, League 2.
No,
but Amman will never know. What they've got in their subs bench. How do we get onto this? Are we going to move on to the next team?
Yeah, we'll move to the next team. Everton Man United. Man United 2, Everton 1. I thought Man United might struggle a little bit, but they were very comfortable. This is probably the most tenor performance we've had since Man United. I'm not saying that we're there yet. We're going to be challenging or might even get top 4, but it was the most controlled performance, I would say. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think when, like we've said this before, when United concede early, it always seems to be like a negative domino effect. Like Fernandes loses it, the midfielders lose it, like, and then they just kind of go off on one. But yeah, I thought it was kind of outside of that long shot, which was a great goal, by the way. Like I feel like United had good control. I think I was kind of half paying attention to the game, but not having Sancho there, I don't know about you, Sharon, kind of looked a bit better. I felt like Sancho was, even though I love Sancho, and he's definitely a really good player, I just feel like he's kind of a no-show in the last couple of games, and maybe it was time to just kind of mix it up a bit. Martial started, didn't he? Rashford.
Martial was great.
Yeah.
When is that guy going to stay fit more than half an hour?
He went off injured, didn't he?
Yeah.
He had a great pre-season, then he got injured, but in his limited game time, he's been amazing so far this season. And Yeah, I think you're right. Rashford's just in form. He looks a completely different player.
Yeah.
I noticed in the Europa League game as well, just how direct he is, and he's beating players. Now, last year, he'd get the ball, he'd kind of half take someone on, lose it, and then he'd have a pathetic shot from 20 yards that would go nowhere near the goal. But he's just completely different this season, and Ronaldo got number 700 finally. Did you watch that? Did you watch the Europa League game on Thursday?
Yeah, Mrs.
Man United.
Yeah.
Honestly, I only watched like the last 15, 20 minutes of that game. It was one of the funniest 20 minutes I've ever seen, because every time he got the ball, he was shooting or trying to manufacture a shot for himself. Anytime Rashford, Martial, or anyone in the attacking area got the ball, they were looking for Ronaldo, trying to tee him up, and he just could not score. By the end of it, he was so annoyed. I was laughing my head off. That was...
But do you know what frustrates me is that I think United are still playing Ronaldo as if he's prime Ronaldo.
I know.
They keep giving the ball to him and like putting it in front of him 10, 15 yards, and I've seen it so many. He just can't do it anymore, and it's honestly quite sad to see, to be honest. Like, it's a bit like, I'm not gonna say it, but like,
yeah, I knew you would say it.
It's just he's just not that player anymore. And if you're gonna have Ronaldo, you've got to play like Ronaldo he is now. Like, just stick him up front, let Sancho or Anthony do all the running, and just let Ronaldo do the tapping.
It's so weird.
Though.
I have this weird theory about Ronaldo that I just think he destabilizes the team's natural order to the extent where he's the only person that can then save them.
Oh yeah,
self-fulfilling prophecy. All these magic moments that he has, it's just because the team no longer functions as it should going forward, because suddenly everything's got to go to him.
Yeah,
he's now the only person that can save them, and he can save United from like losing points.
He's a medicine to his own poison. Right?
Yeah, and it just doesn't work. Like, you think of Rashford's form, Martial's form, Anthony's scored in all 3 of his Premier League games now. Like, you're spoiled for attacking options now. You've still got Sancho and Alanga to come into that as well, who can be pretty destructive on their day. For me, he's an afterthought. I just think there's better options right now for United.
I think he'll definitely leave January.
But do you think?
I think if we can get a replacement, because that's the thing, right? If Martial's injured, who else can we play striker? Rashford, but I still think Rashford's still better on left.
Well, I was under the impression that he was desperate to leave in the summer, and Ten Hag wasn't really too bothered about it. I think if a team had come in for him, he would have quite happily signed off on him leaving. Because Ten Hag's not been particularly keen to play him all that often, right? So I think it was more a case of who the hell is going to pay those wages. That's because he wants to be in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, right? He wants to be Champions League,
but
the teams that could maybe get him, like maybe Sporting Lisbon, can't afford him.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
He has to take a big cut.
None of the teams that can afford him are going to bother. There's just better options now.
And then our last match, Nottingham Forest 1, Aston Villa 1. Aston Villa keep a tight ship. Nottingham Forest.
Don't.
One thing I was looking back at Nottingham Forest goals. I think they've been quite unlucky, to be fair.
Oh, you can see it with them.
Yeah,
you can see it, and every time they get the ball, they're very direct. They do not have problems getting into the opposition box or kind of creating, not creating chances, because I think sometimes they need to be more clinical and can do better in actually creating the chances. But in terms of getting into attacking areas, they've got no problems whatsoever. It's just they feel easy to get at defensively.
When I was looking at the goals they conceded, most of them are pretty much screamers for the first goal, which I always find is unfair because they have to now come back from it. So this game, Ashley Young, Fabian Shaw scored that screamer on the first day of the season. Billings scored that screamer. They seem to concede a lot from long range. Demir Gray scored from outside the box. It's quite unfortunate, to be fair. Like, to go 1 goal behind, and you're already that kind of team that's struggling for form. It's an uphill battle.
Yeah, I get that, to be fair. And it is weird. Like, Henderson's had like a really good season, and then in other instances, I think he's been quite poor and has conceded goals that he really shouldn't have. So it's kind of hard to know where to gauge him. But these two teams, I think, it's probably a fair result given where these teams are.
What do you guys think about Gerrard? Do you think?
I think he's going to have a bit of time, because the thing with Villa is they haven't had any of these like just complete demolitions where they just get turned over 4-0. They just get completely outplayed. It's just really flat, the performances, but they're not really conceded a massive number of goals. They're in most games, right? When they do lose, it's by narrow margins for the most part. So it's not panic. It's just slightly underwhelming. And I think Coutinho is the big problem. And it's gone beyond what we even expect from Coutinho. Like, I don't... Has he done anything this season?
Nothing. No goal assists.
Shocking.
I think with Villa, like, I think there's a clear... I'm glowing. I don't know why I'm glowing. It wasn't like this before, but I'm trying it now.
Praise be the Lord.
Raging. Like, I think there's a clear line in the sand where, like, I think Gerrard was just like, we've been seeing too many goals. We need to be more tight, and that's fine. Like, you can win games like that. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. You can win like that. You can draw games like that, but I think the real pressure starts when you kind of play like that, and then you're all of a sudden losing the game 1-0, 2-0. I think that's when the pressure kind of comes up, because a lot of the saving grace a lot of the time is at least teams are losing, but at least they're playing well. Whereas if you're a defensive team that's still losing, then it's really hard to justify that play style. But I don't think there's anything to suggest that, they've got some good, like they drew against City, they've got some good results in. So I think Gerrard is probably not in my mind that he'll be let go anytime soon, unless there's a massive drop off coming up to the World Cup. But I still like Villa. They've got a lot of good players like Ramsey, Coutinho we just said, but he's not doing too well.
Ashley Young.
Yeah. They have Luca Dean. He went to Villa, didn't they?
I think he's injured, right? I think that's why Ashley Young's
deputizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they still have some. I mean, and Ings and Watkins, the two strikers that never seem to score goals, but they have some good players, and I do like them. But yeah, as soon as those draws turns into losses, those wins turn into losses, then we'll probably see a bit more of an issue.
Yeah, to be fair, you are right in that as much as they haven't had these catastrophic losses, they haven't had any wins that you can really look to and say, okay, yeah, this is a team go and play. They literally haven't. I think they've had like a win against Southampton, a poor Southampton side. They beat an Everton side that was struggling at that time as well. So they haven't really gone too up or gone too down. It's just been very, very boring and dull, really, from Villa so far.
Yeah, I was reading like a tweet from this Aston Villa fan, and she's like, no matter win, lose or draw, she's still disappointed. As kind of the football, they kind of play. They play very narrow. It's not very expansive. They really rely on their fullbacks, but Matty Cash I do like, and then obviously Dinier's injured, but I think he needs to change.
Cash is awesome.
Yeah, I think he needs to change some kind of system tweak. I don't think he can keep playing this way. If Coutinho, Buendia aren't really providing goods, he needs to maybe play Bailey.
I mean, there's too many good attacking players for them all to be struggling. I know Buendia can be streaky, and we know Bailey can be streaky, and we know Coutinho can be streaky, but at some point, over the course of the first 3 months of the season, a couple of them should have had a couple of decent runs of form. Buendia and Bailey have had maybe a couple of good games between them.
Yeah.
And like we said, Coutinho's done nothing. He needs to find a way to get these players dictating games. I've not got bored yet of seeing Arsenal on top. It's so good to see. And I always say 9 games, that's when it starts to mean something. Then you look at the table and you go, okay, this is what this team is now. And to be fair, you look at the top of that, the only team that looks out of place, from top 6 point of view is Liverpool, right? Other than that, Arsenal, City, Spurs, Chelsea, United, Newcastle on the outskirts of it. That's kind of what we all expected, right, at the start of this season.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Bournemouth
for 8th.
Yeah, I know, that's
even Fulham.
Unbelievable.
They concede a lot.
And Bournemouth have got that thing that Wolves had going on last year, that value for goals. What's that? 1.5 points per goal so far this season for Bournemouth. It's good value.
It's weird seeing Bournemouth and Fulham conceded 20 and 18 goals each. But
Yeah, that's
top
crazy.
10.
I still think as good as those two have been, I would not be surprised if come February we're looking at that in the bottom section of the table, Bournemouth and Fulham, 18th and 19th or something.
Yeah, Chelsea and United aren't too far. Obviously, when
the game in hand.
Yeah, game in hand too. Against, I think we have it against Leeds, was it? Yeah, Leeds. Yeah, and Chelsea have against Liverpool, I think.
It feels like from that sort of Tottenham downwards, that sort of 3rd to 7th positions, or how we think they're going to play out, is going to be quite close. I think there's going to be a lot of taking points off each other in that point. And I think teams like that will threaten to take points off Arsenal as well. United already have done so. City, God knows who can beat them.
Arsenal.
Next unbeatables. Next Manchester City. Next unbeatables.
We'll see.
Matt's sweating now. He just realised they haven't lost.
Oh God!
It's weird that they're two. Well, Newcastle draw was good, but then Aston Villa, that was a real freak result.
Yeah. I think it will be a freak loss that City have. I don't think a big team's going to beat City.
No, not anymore.
No, I mean they might do them in the reverse, but it's going to be like a team like that that come out of nowhere. I reckon they'll turn over all the top teams.
Matt, what's your team? What's your team that you think will give City their first loss?
I am going to say it's going to be. Let's see the bottom half of the table.
Leicester. Could be Leicester.
Oh, that would be properly naughty.
Be like Madison long range.
It's going to be Brentford.
Brentford.
It's going to be Brentford. When are they playing Brentford?
Surprised you haven't said Wolves. At that one more goal.
No, I don't. I can't ever trust Wolves to score a goal. They're averaging a goal every 3 games. That's not good.
I think Brentford playing Leicester the last game before the World Cup. 12th of November.
Brentford, Man City, you mean?
Man City, yeah, Man City, Brentford. But that's at the Etihad.
Perfect way to go into the World Cup.
I can't see who can beat them. Maybe West Ham could do something, I think, if they're in form.
Before we actually absolutely got slaughtered by City, I thought it was going to be United.
It was going that way, right? We beat Liverpool, beat Arsenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, this bottom of the table, I mean, obviously Leicester need to get going.
Going out the league or going up the
league? They need to start winning games because it's ridiculous them being in that position. The players they've got, and it'd be interesting to see who Wolves hire. Because for me, I I think you've got to get like an attacking style manager in there, get goals. I don't think clean sheets is enough to save a team that scores so few.
Poor fans.
Yeah, I mean, a goal every 3 games, that's just rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, that is our weekend wrap up for game week 10. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe and comment below, and hope JC stops glowing.
The aliens are going to take me now.
Bye, JC. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.